The small hand, smudged with dirt and a fierce determination that belied its size, rested on the bedroom door. 6-year-old Cody held his breath, a tiny statue in the dim hallway, pressing his ear against the cool painted wood. From inside came the sound, a cough that was wet and ragged, tearing through the quiet of the apartment. It was followed by a weak, shuddering sigh that seemed to steal all the air, all the warmth from their small world. His mother, Sarah, hadn't gotten out of bed in 2 days. 2 whole eternities. He'd tried everything his 6-year-old mind could conjure. Yesterday, he had carefully carried her his favorite picture book, the one about the brave little bear who flew a kite all the way to the moon. He'd held it up for her, tracing the bear's journey with his finger. She had managed to smile, a faint, tired curve of her lips that didn't reach her eyes, before they fluttered closed again. He had brought her a glass of water from the kitchen, concentrating so hard on not spilling a drop that his tongue stuck out from the corner of his mouth. She'd taken a single, difficult sip, her hand trembling as she held the glass, before pushing it back toward him. The word she kept whispering, a ghost in the darkened room, was fever. To Cody, it sounded like the name of a monster, a hot, quiet monster that had snuck into their apartment and was hiding in his mommy's room, stealing her voice and her smiles. He tiptoed back to his own small space, a corner of the living room sectioned off by a tall, wobbly bookshelf that served as a wall. His little territory, his eyes, wide and worried, fell on his piggy bank, a blue ceramic rocket ship meant for saving up for trips to other galaxies. He picked it up and shook it. Silence. The hollow rattle of nothing. He had joyfully emptied it last week, shaking every last coin out to buy a giant chocolate bar with nuts and caramel, a treat he'd proudly shared with her on a good day. A sunny afternoon in the park that now felt like it belonged to another boy, in another lifetime. His gaze scanned his limited kingdom of treasures. A family of stuffed animals with missing eyes and stitched-on smiles. A vibrant pile of colorful building blocks. And then, it. The centerpiece, the undisputed king of all his toys. It was a metal car, a replica of a classic convertible, painted a brilliant, defiant red. It wasn't just a toy. It was history. His father, a man he only knew from a single faded photograph tucked into his mother's jewelry box, had given it to her years ago. It was our first date car, she told him, and she had passed it on to him on his 5th birthday, her voice soft as she said, "This is a car for big adventures, Cody. For when you need to be brave." He picked it up now. The die-cast metal felt cool and heavy in his small palm, substantial, important. He ran his thumb over a tiny, silver scratch on the driver's side door, a battle scar from a daring, high-speed jump off the sofa armrest. This car had value. It wasn't cheap plastic. It was strong, it was fast, and it was the very best thing he owned. A knot of decision tightened in his stomach. He knew what he had to do. Big adventures. For when you need to be brave, the time was now. With the red car clutched tightly in his fist, a silent promise to his mother humming in his chest like an engine, Cody slipped on his worn sneakers. The Velcro straps frayed but secure. He dragged a kitchen chair to the front door, climbed up, and turned the deadbolt with a practiced, grown-up click. The world outside the apartment was an immediate assault on the senses. The hallway smelled of old carpets and someone else's cooking. Down the stairs and out the main door, the city sidewalk was a roaring river of legs and shoes, a relentless current he had to fight against. He kept his head down, his small frame buffeted by the wake of hurried strangers. The red car was a secret talisman hidden deep in his jeans pocket, its smooth, solid shape a constant reassurance against his leg. He knew where he was going. He'd been there with his mom a few months ago, holding her hand. The place with the big green cross that glowed like a strange, daytime star. He remembered her buying a box with a picture of a smiling cartoon sun on it, the last time she'd had a cough that kept her up at night. He would find that sun again. He would capture it and bring it home. After what felt like hours of navigating a dense forest of grown-up knees and swinging shopping bags, he saw it. The glowing green cross of the Sterling Pharmacy. It felt like reaching the end of a quest. He summoned all his strength, pushing the heavy glass door with his whole body until it grudgingly opened, and he tumbled inside. The air was a shock. It was clean and cold, smelling of antiseptic, plastic, and something vaguely, sweetly medicinal. It was bright, too bright after the gray afternoon, and the quiet, electric hum of the fluorescent lights felt like a loud, buzzing secret. He stood blinking for a moment, a tiny ship in a vast white ocean of commerce. He scanned the towering aisles, his heart thumping a nervous rhythm against his ribs. Aisle 1, shampoo and soap. He smelled flowers. Aisle 2, paper towels and diapers. Aisle 3, makeup and lotion. Then, in aisle 4, labeled pain and fever, he saw it. High on a top shelf, almost touching the lights, was a row of yellow boxes, each one bearing the friendly, beaming sun he remembered. It was too high. It might as well have been on the moon with the kite-flying bear. He tried to jump, his small fingers brushing uselessly against the cold metal bottom of the shelf. He looked around for help. The pharmacy was a world of disconnected adults. A tall man in a suit strode past, his voice loud as he argued into his phone. A woman was intently comparing 2 bottles of lotion, lost in her own decision. No one saw him. No one was paying him any attention. Then his eyes caught a flicker of yellow plastic. Tucked away near the end of the aisle, partially hidden by a display of tissues, was a 2-step stool used by the stock employees. A ladder to the sundae, he dragged it, the plastic legs scraping loudly against the polished linoleum floor. The sound was deafening in the quiet store, and he froze, sure he would be discovered. But no one turned. Climbing onto the top step, his sneakers wobbling on the plastic, he stretched his small arm as far as it would go. His fingers hooked around the edge of one of the boxes. Carefully, painstakingly, he pulled it toward him until it tipped over the edge and fell neatly into his waiting hand. Victory! It felt warm from the lights, a captured piece of sunshine. He clutched the box and the car in his pocket and made his way to the front of the store, joining the back of a long, slow-moving line. He watched the people ahead of him, studying the ritual. The woman at the front gave the cashier a shiny plastic card. The machine beeped, and she left with her bag. The man behind her gave the cashier green paper and got smaller papers and coins back. It seemed simple enough. Finally, it was his turn. He stepped up to the massive counter, which came up to his nose. The cashier didn't even look at him at first. Her name tag, pinned to a pale blue smock, read Alara. She was staring at her computer screen, her expression a flat line of practiced boredom, her fingers tapping a rhythmic, uninterested beat on the counter. Next, she said, her voice a monotone, tired from 1,000 other transactions just like this one. Cody pushed the box of medicine toward her. Her gaze followed the movement, and then her eyes, pale and weary, finally found him. A flicker of confusion, then annoyance, crossed her face. "Are your parents here, kid?" He shook his head, his dark hair falling into his eyes. "It's for my mommy. She's sick." Alara let out a long, quiet sigh. It was the end of a long shift, and a lost kid was a complication she did not need. "Okay," she said, her voice softening just a fraction. She scanned the box. "That'll be $22.50. Cody stared at her blankly. The words were just sounds. He didn't know what a 22 was, or a 50. He just knew what he had to offer. He reached into his pocket, his small hand wrapping around the cool metal of the car. He pulled it out and placed it on the counter with a solemn reverence, positioning it carefully right next to the medicine box. "This is for that," he said, his voice small but firm, clear as a bell. Alara stopped. Her tired fingers halted their drumming. She looked from the boy's intensely serious face to the toy car on her counter. It was a nice one, she noticed absently. Old, made of real metal, not the cheap flimsy plastic they sold in the toy aisle now. It had weight. But it was still just a toy. "I'm sorry, sweetie," she said, forcing a gentle tone. "I can't take this. It costs money. You know, dollars. It's very valuable," Cody insisted, his brow furrowed with the effort of making her understand. "It's a classic," my mom said. "It can go super fast. See?" He leaned forward, pointing a slightly grimy finger at the scratch on the door. "That's from a race. His absolute, unwavering faith was a tangible thing in the air between them, a strange, warm pressure in the cold, transactional space of the pharmacy. He believed in the value of his offering with his entire being, and he could not comprehend why she did not. Behind him, the line was growing restless. A man grumbled, "What's the holdup? Some of us have places to be." Alara felt a familiar spike of anxiety curl in her stomach. This was the kind of situation that spiraled. A crying kid, an impatient manager, a customer complaint. "Look, kid, you need $22.50. She pointed a manicured finger at the bright green numbers on the register's screen. The numbers meant nothing to him. He just shook his head, his lower lip beginning to tremble. He pushed the car a little closer to her, a desperate, final plea. "Please, my mommy needs the sundae." Just then, a sharp, authoritative voice cut through the air like breaking glass. "Vance, what's the problem here? You've got a line halfway to the back of the store." Mr. Henderson, the store manager, strode over from his office, his polished shoes clicking in a vicious rhythm on the floor. He was a man who saw customers as numbers and problems as deviations from sacred policy. He glanced at Cody, then at the toy car, and his face soured with impatience. "What is this? Get him out of here. We're not a daycare. If his parents left him, call security." The threat of security hung in the air, cold and sharp. Cody's eyes widened in fear, and he took an involuntary step back, his small hand still resting protectively near the car. He had to protect the car. It was his only hope. Alara looked from her manager's cold, angry face to the boy's frightened one. And in that moment, something inside her, a part of her she thought had been worn down to a smooth, useless nub by overdue bills and rude customers and long, lonely nights, stirred. It sparked. She remembered being 8 years old, standing in a different pharmacy, watching her own mother's face tighten with shame as she counted out pennies for her little brother's asthma inhaler. She remembered the fear in her mother's eyes, a fear she was seeing reflected now in this little boy's. She would not be the person who put that fear in this child's eyes. She had tried to follow the rules, to be the efficient, detached employee Henderson demanded. But the rules didn't account for this. This wasn't in the training manual. She made a decision. It felt like stepping off a cliff into thin air. Ignoring the vibrating rage emanating from her manager, she turned her full attention back to Cody. With a new, deliberate calm, she picked up the red car. Her expression shifted, becoming one of deep, professional appraisal. "Well, now," she said, her voice suddenly clear and loud enough for the people in line to hear. "Let's have a look. A 1965 model, I believe." She turned it over in her hands, as if checking for an invisible serial number. "And in this condition, remarkable." Cody's eyes were wide with a mixture of hope and awe. He knew it. He knew it was valuable. "It is a rare color, you know," Alara continued, her voice gaining a theatrical confidence she didn't know she possessed. "This radiant red often fades to a dull orange over time. But this one, this has been well cared for. A collector's item, for sure." Somewhere in the line, a woman in a floral scarf stifled a sob. A young man near the back, a college student named Marcus, discreetly raised his phone, hit record, and framed the scene. He was a journalism student, and his instincts screamed that this was a story. Mr. Henderson's face was turning a shade of purple that clashed violently with his mustard yellow tie. "Vance, what in God's name do you think you're doing?" Alara met his furious gaze, a spark of pure, exhilarating defiance lighting her up from the inside. Then she turned back to her register. She held the toy car over the flatbed scanner, and with a subtle flick of her other hand under the counter, she pressed the cash button on her keyboard. The register emitted a loud, cheerful beep. Cody jumped, and his frightened face broke open into a radiant, disbelieving smile. "Transaction approved," Alara announced, her voice ringing with a joyful finality. She quickly put the medicine in a small paper bag. While the receipt was printing, her hands moved in a blur. She took a 20 and 3 ones from her own worn purse, stashed on a shelf below the counter, and in one smooth motion, opened the cash drawer and rang it through, the mechanical clatter masking the crinkle of her own money going in. She handed the bag to Cody. "Here you go, you tell your mommy to feel better." Cody took the bag, his mission accomplished, his world righted. He looked at the red car, still sitting on her side of the counter, now her property. Then he looked at her. A silent, profound thank you passed between them, a communication far beyond words. "Thank you," he whispered. And then he turned and walked purposefully toward the exit. A small knight who had successfully slain the dragon and captured the Sunday. As soon as Cody was out the door, Mr. Henderson's fury erupted. "Vance, my office, now," he hissed, his voice a low growl of contained thunder. The other customers watched, silent and wide-eyed, as Alara squared her shoulders and followed him toward the back of the store. Marcus, the student, stopped recording. He quickly titled the video, "An Act of Kindness You Have to See to Believe," added the hashtags #Sterling Pharmacy and #Everyday Hero, and hit upload to his social media, tagging the local news outlet he interned for. The door to Mr. Henderson's office clicked shut, sealing them in. "Are you insane?" he began, his voice dropping to a menacing snarl. "You accepted a toy as payment for $22 worth of merchandise. Do you have any idea the precedent that sets? The policies you violated? This is a business, Alara, not your personal feel-good charity project." Alara stood there, her heart pounding a wild rhythm against her ribs, but the anxiety was gone. In its place was a strange, unshakable calm. He was a little boy trying to help his sick mom, Mr. Henderson. It was $22.50. $22.50 is $22.50 that belongs to this company. It's the principle. You've undermined my authority and broken every rule in the employee handbook. You are a liability. Pack your things. You're fired. The words, which should have devastated her, landed without impact. She had bills to pay, rent that was already late, a life balanced on a knife's edge. But all she felt was a quiet, clean sense of rightness. She had done the right thing. As she stood there, about to accept her fate, Mr. Henderson's personal cell phone buzzed sharply on his desk. He ignored it, his glare fixed on her. Then it buzzed again. And again. And again. A frantic, insistent vibration. Annoyed, he snatched it up, ready to silence it. He glanced at the screen. His eyes widened. At that exact same moment, the official store phone on his desk began to ring, a shrill, frantic jingle that wouldn't stop. He stabbed a button to answer it. Henderson speaking. He listened, and Alara watched as his angry, purple color slowly drained away, replaced by a pasty, slack-jawed shock. His posture deflated. "Yes. Yes. She's right here." "No, sir. Of course not. I was just commending her on her initiative." "Yes, a promotion. Absolutely. Frontline leadership material. Consider it done." He hung up the phone as if it were burning hot. He stared at Alara, his mouth opening and closing silently like a fish gasping for air. "That was corporate," he said, his voice a hoarse, strangled whisper. "The district vice president of public relations." He swiped his finger across his own cell phone screen and turned it toward her. It was Marcus's video. In the 15 minutes since it was posted, it had been shared thousands of times. The local news station had already embedded it on their homepage. News vans were, the VP had informed him, on their way. The top comment, with hundreds of likes, read, "That cashier is an angel. The manager is a first-class jerk. Give her his job." Mr. Henderson swallowed hard, a dry, clicking sound in his throat. They want you to be the face of our new community care initiative, they said. They said to give you a raise. A significant one. And a promotion to assistant manager. He couldn't meet her eyes. He was looking at his own professional demise, playing out in real time on a tiny screen. Alara walked out of the office, the manager's stunned silence following her like a shadow. The pharmacy was buzzing with a new energy. Customers were whispering, pointing at their phones. Her coworkers were staring at her with a mixture of fear and awe. Through the front window, she could see the sleek, white van of a local news station pulling into the parking lot, its satellite antenna already rising. It was all completely surreal. Amid the escalating chaos, her eyes landed on the counter. There, forgotten in the whirlwind, sat the little red toy car. Its paint seemed to gleam under the fluorescent lights, a tiny, silent beacon of courage. She picked it up, its familiar weight settling in her palm, and slipped it into her pocket. A week later, Ilara Vance, now the assistant manager of Sterling Pharmacy and a minor local celebrity, stood outside a modest apartment door, the number 3B painted in fading blue. The company, in a brilliant PR move, had not only given her a promotion but had also established a community fund. The fund's first act was to cover all of Sarah's medical expenses and send a doctor for a house call. Sarah, now healthy and bright-eyed, her voice clear and warm, opened the door with a genuine smile that reached her eyes. The small apartment, once heavy with sickness, now smelled of chicken soup and clean laundry. "Ilara, please, come in." Cody was sitting on the floor, building a magnificent tower of blocks that nearly reached the ceiling. He looked up, and his face lit up with pure joy. "You came!" Ilara smiled and knelt down on the rug beside him. "I brought you something," she said, holding out a small, neatly wrapped box. Cody tore it open with impatient fingers. Inside, nestled on a bed of white tissue paper, was his brilliant red car, polished to a mirror shine, its honorable battle scar on the door still proudly visible. And right next to it, an identical, brand-new red convertible, still in its original collector's packaging. Cody gasped. He looked from the old beloved car to the new, perfect one, then up at Ilara, his eyes shining with a question he didn't know how to ask. "A trade is a trade," Ilara said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "Your payment was accepted, but the appraiser, that's me, decided that after a thorough inspection, your classic model was actually worth a little more than you thought." Cody didn't say anything. He just launched himself forward and threw his arms around her neck in a fierce, tight hug that said everything. Sarah watched them, happy tears welling in her eyes. Ilara held the boy close, the scent of his shampoo and the simple, undeniable warmth of his gratitude filling an emptiness that had lived inside her for so long. She stayed for a while, watching Cody race the two cars across the living room floor. The old one, rich with history and love, and the new one, shiny with future promise. They were just toys, but they were also the evidence of a bridge, a connection forged in a moment of desperation. A bridge built with a child's priceless offering and paid for with a simple act of kindness that had, somehow, impossibly, changed everything.